Hi class, we're getting into another 8th grade standard. We're moving into chapter 13, graphing and writing linear equations. Our first lesson here is graphing those linear equations. Again, this is something I did preview and we touched on earlier in the year, so that it would help ease us into this later in the year because I knew this would be something you guys would need to know and learn. So you might say, oh, I already know how to do this, or I might remember it, which is great. Otherwise, if you're kind of forgetting and you need that refresher, that's what this is for. And this is what our first lesson is on. Let's first talk about the vocab. A linear equation, if we forget, it's an equation whose graph is a line. So remember, linear, there's that root word line in there. So our line is nice and straight. It's either going to be increasing, it might be decreasing, or it could be a horizontal or vertical line. Now, all of the points on the line are solutions of that equation. We can use the graph to show the solutions of each linear equation. So we're going to practice by first graphing a line for the equation y equals x plus 1. Now that's a linear equation. We have our x, we have our y, it's in y equals form. There's no squaring happening, there's no cubing. We know that it is just going to be a nice straight line. So when we are creating a graph, we have to first complete and create a table. So I have this empty table to the right that we're going to fill in. So you could just make a nice T-chart. I have this table created for us, but you need your x values and you'll find your y values. Now, for x values, those are the values that you choose. Once you choose your x values, you'll use them in the equation to find your y. Now, when we're choosing x values, we're always going to want to choose a negative, 0, and then a positive. Typically, I keep it nice and simple. I would always use -1, 0, and +1. You can choose whatever negative and positive values you want, but I'm going to ask you always to have 0. That's the easiest one. You should want to have that in your equation. All right, let's take a look. When we're plugging that in now, we're going to use our equation to plug each x value in for x, and that's going to tell us what y equals. So when I plug that in, I now have -1 plus 1. Well, what is -1 plus 1? I get 0. Then we're going to plug 0 into the equation. So 0 plus 1 gives us 1. And our last value, x is 1, so 1 plus 1 gives us 2. Now we have these ordered pairs. Our first ordered pair is -1, 0. So let me just remind you, ordered pair is your x value, then your y value. When we're graphing, you always do your x, then your y. So either go left or right. Remember, this is our x axis here. It's the horizontal axis. And then y is our vertical axis. You'll go up or down. So first one, -1, 0, tells us to go to the left 1. And then we're not going up or down any. We're at 0. So I'm just going to go to the left 1 and put a point. Our next ordered pair is 0, 1, 0. We're staying at the origin. I'm not going left or right any. And then I'm going up on my y, 1. Put a point. My goodness. It's so hard. Let me zoom in some. To put a point on this. Sorry if I'm driving you crazy. All right. Phew. And our last one, 1, 2, meaning I'm going to the right 1, up 2. Once you have all 3 of your points plotted, you just connect them to create a line. Extend it up to the right and left and just draw your arrows at the end. That's just showing that that line is further than those 3 points. There's other points on that line besides just those 3. Try to connect them as straight as you can, going to the left and to the right. I know mine's not perfect, doesn't have to be perfect, just try your best. But that's our graph for y equals x plus 1. We're done. Next, let's talk about these key ideas. What if our line has to be horizontal or vertical? What does that look like? So I made these acronyms, HOI and BUCKS, and it has always helped my students in the past with remembering these. So if it's a horizontal line, we're going to think HOI. And what does that mean? Well, the H stands for you know it'll be a horizontal line. The O, or what you think is an O, is really a 0, means the slope is going to be 0. And then Y means that our equation is in Y equals a number, any number. So you might see it as like Y equals 3. If they ask you to graph that equation, you should automatically see that Y and say, oh, well, there's no X. Like how before, up here, this is a linear equation, but it has an X and a Y. Well, if it's missing an X or a Y, then it's either going to be horizontal or vertical. So for this one, again, if it's Y equals a number, you should automatically think, all right, hoy, it's going to be a horizontal line, so it's going to look something like that. Now, what about vertical? Vertical, we're thinking of the acronym VUX. V means vertical. U means the slope is undefined, right? We can't define that slope. It's not increasing, nor is it decreasing. And then this time, our equation will look something like X equals a number, like X equals 3. See how we're missing the variable Y? If you see something in X equals and it asks you to graph it like that, you should automatically think VUX, and you are going to know that it's going to be a vertical line. Don't worry, we're going to do some examples with that in our part 2 video, but this is just part 1, our introduction, our vocab, and our key ideas. Go ahead and press play on part 2 so we can go through all of the examples.